This is Armenian Armed Forces Colonel of the Reserve Valery Vardanyan. It's a report from a video seminar held on March 22nd this year with the Armenian community of Moscow, where he presented a conditional scenario for the creation of Western, Central, and Eastern Armenia today. Armenian Armed Forces, Colonel of the Reserve Valery Vardanyan, will try to present to you one of the almost irrational programmatic ideological scenarios of the NTI states of Armenia, through which, with the right development of events and constructive cooperation with a number of states, firstly, it will be possible to lead the Republic of Armenia out of the current deep civilizational crisis and establish close and real civilizational cooperation with them. After that, the Armenians will also be ready to assist the authorities of the Russian Federation and the United States of America. Since, according to our observations, the aforementioned two superpowers do not seem to have found a real way out of the crisis, there is a high probability that many of you may smile magnanimously at this seemingly naive, perhaps even seemingly arrogant suggestion of mine, or be puzzled and surprised by how this Reserve Armenian Armed Forces colonel, representing a broken, poor, and semi-independent Armenia, dares to be so arrogant that, in addition to underestimating superpowers such as Russia, the USA or China offers them such kind of incomprehensible offer. Concretizing what has been said, I will first try to present the prerequisites of this at first glance. Rational scenarios, the proposals of the three Armenians, as well as everything that we can see from the Armenian highlands. According to our observations, almost no country in the world currently has any ready-made scenario, recipe, for a way out of the current global civilizational crisis. From Yerevan, we are offering irrational solutions, so to speak, which I think will interest not only our compatriots living in Russia, but also all representatives of the intelligentsia living in the Russian Federation and concerned about the fate of their own country. Regardless of their nationality or religion, there is a vague hope for a way out of this general chaos, thanks to the victory of Donald Trump's team in the recent elections to the United States of America, especially thanks to their constructive statements, which we also positively received in Armenia, thinking that the criminal permissiveness of globalists would finally be put to an end. At the same time, it should be noted that the 3-month events in the United States show that the Trump team also does not seem to have an effective plan to overcome the current global crisis and return to real civilizational values. Since the current ruling, U.S. administration is not acting so effectively and correctly, and is also moving forward with indecisive decisions. Since it has not yet been clarified which specific countries or peoples, other than American voters and Israel, intend to lead the United States and the world out of this global crisis. I will say that upon preliminary observation, it becomes obvious that the U.S. authorities will try to implement their political program, mainly relying on Christian Protestants and Zionists. I think it would have been more effective if the United States, in addition to Protestant Christians, had also relied thousands of years ago on a nation originating from the Armenian highlands, in particular on the Armenians, who also brought civilization to the Anglo-Saxons. Whether anyone agrees with this idea or not, the Armenians were, are, and will be the leaven of this sacred cause of civilization. The United States has one of the most powerful strategic research institutes in the world, which also knows about the above-mentioned truth. Since the world's largest Armenian studies centers are located in the United States and the United Kingdom, we also think that the United States should reconsider its current strategy. Otherwise, with this approach, they can achieve only minor success and ensure short-term progress. Since the globalists are still strong and patient enough, if we follow the current approach, it is obvious that Trump will only be able to temporarily stop the current decline of civilization within the country, including in terms of perversions, which is very important, but not enough. With this approach, it is impossible to find fundamental geopolitical solutions. The situation in Russia is slightly different, but almost similar. Armenia is an intertwined reflection of all this. When I say leaven is a nation, I mean that the Armenians were formed in the Armenian highlands and live in their homeland, have been spreading civilization throughout the world for thousands of years. It is probably also for this reason that we have lost our vital and energetic areas of the Armenian highlands. Also, as a result, we were divided, forcibly converted to another religion, and were subjected to periodic pogroms, as well as genocide. It should also be noted that the Armenians, who spread civilization all over the world, have remained and still live in almost all these countries of the world. It is also obvious that Armenians living in different parts of the world and countries continue their mission in these countries. Moreover, Armenians continue to reconcile and unite different peoples, nations, and nationalities, and develop science, economics, and other vital areas. Armenians play the same role in Russia, which many people don't like. This is a well-known historical reality. When they wanted to weaken a country, first of all, they expelled the Armenians from there. Tsarist Russia and Persia did the same. The same thing is happening in the Middle East today. In the end, we as a nation must understand that, in addition to spreading civilization, we are the ones who harmonize the peoples of the world with each other, without which it is impossible to ensure development, especially in the civilizational sphere. It is also no secret that the demand for Armenians is great today because Armenians, besides being scattered all over the world, are familiar with the value systems and customs of all peoples of the world, religious denominations. Having lived in these communities for centuries, they fully participated in all the processes of their development, in good and bad days. In this marathon of historical development, Armenians have harmonized with almost all peoples of the world and actually practice almost all world religions. In our case, in terms of population, the largest in the world, however, is the Armenian community, which professes Christianity and Islam. There are more adherents of Islam somewhere. About half of the Armenians living in the world are usually Christians. After the famous historical tragic events of the beginning of the last century, the other half of Armenians today practice Islam. According to a study by experts, about 80% of Turks, Kurds, Alawites, and other ethnic groups living in the territories from Ankara to the current border with Armenia are of Armenian origin. In Turkey, the Turkish ethnic group itself makes up 2 to 3%. Besides Christianity and Islam, there are also Armenian communities professing Buddhism, Hinduism, Zoroastrianism, and other religious trends. The teachings of ancient Armenia, the god Tyrus, have also become widespread, and the number of his followers is growing in Armenia, both in the West as well as in Russia and other countries of the region. There are also assimilated strata of a large number of Armenians who know or are gradually beginning to reveal their Armenian roots, genealogy, and genetic affiliation. So the shortest and most effective way to get out of the current civilizational crisis is to rely on world Armenians, whether they live in Russia, the United States, or anywhere else. Therefore, it is advisable to implement this program scenario, proposed by the 3 Armenians in cooperation with both the continental and individual countries of the Atlantic civilization. In particular, it is advisable to start it together with the Russian Federation, the United States of America, or possibly also with China. If their political elites recognize that initially, for thousands of years, ancient civilizations were guided by spiritual, scientific, and material value systems, strictly observing the hierarchy of governance. The social system, in accordance with the hierarchy, was headed by wise men who carried spiritual values, which gradually changed over the centuries. As a result of the changes, today's world is ruled by representatives of the wealth system, which occupies the 3rd level of the hierarchy market relations. Today, even the public administration systems of the superpowers are guided by this system of values. More than today, it is extremely important to cooperate in a system of values of a new moral quality, since only through joint efforts can realistic civilizational solutions be found and the current geopolitical crisis trap can be overcome with honor. To be fair, let's also state that the change in spiritual, scientific, and material levels was carried out at coordinated spiral stages of development. In the next cycle, we will again move on to the spiritual value system, which of course, we, in particular, the members of the Hermes Club, should be prepared for. I think our task is also to participate in this process of restoring spiritual, scientific, and material value systems, rather than waiting and remaining solely in the role of an observer. We must also realize that the Armenians cannot sit idly by and isolate themselves from this process, as this is the very civilizational mission they have left unfinished. But on the other hand, we understand that we will unwittingly face serious challenges, as the question will arise. What can the Armenians do alone? Obviously, apart from the fact that this is beyond our strength, it is a rather serious and responsible process. Besides, how can we single-handedly change this value system that is ingrained all over the world? Before giving a comprehensive answer to the question, let's also state that we are not alone. A number of the aforementioned and other super-powerful states are also concerned about this problem. This issue is also discussed in the centers of strategic studies of these countries, where, in addition to esoteric studies, the philosophy of Hermes Trismegistus is also studied. It's just that the process is slowing down for a number of objective and subjective reasons. One of which is the fundamental differences in the Atlantic and continental civilization models. Let's try to understand the fundamental differences and contradictions between Atlantic and continental civilizations together. For example, in the Atlantic civilization, as in the USA, Great Britain, Canada, and etc., priority is given to a specific person in the social system. The system first attaches importance to the individual and then only to the state. In the continental civilization, as in Russia, China, Germany, and etc., it is the exact opposite. In this social system, priority is given to the state and then to the individual. The slogan, "Everything for the state," is in effect, so to speak. As a result, the person remains in the shadows. With such disjointed approaches, it is impossible to build a harmonious social system and relationships. The civilization formed in the Armenian highlands, unlike the Atlantic and continental ones, is more holistic and includes the main provisions of both the Atlantic and continental models, and even harmonizes these opposite poles, since it is from here that these models spread throughout the world. In contrast, the Armenian model equally attaches importance to the role and importance of both the state and the individual. Perhaps this is due to the fact that Armenians, as a rule, are divided into at least three parts. To this day, one part is avid pro-Westerners. The other is pro-Western, or as they say, pro-Russian, and the main part is pro-Armenian. It seems that the Hermesian and Armenian civilizational approaches are similar in this regard. There may also be researchers among you who will develop this thesis or make new suggestions. In any case, we must rely on ideas, thoughts, and foundations that correspond to our national fundamental characteristics, value system, and traditions. I hope that we have also created the Hermes Club in order to provide an informed answer to these or similar questions. Based on the above-mentioned features of the Armenian nation, following scenario was written, according to which, as a Levanation, we propose to find the facets of a real civilizational reconciliation between the West and the East, primarily the United States of America and the Russian Federation, which can be greatly supported not only by the proposed three Armenians, but also by the entire Armenian diaspora. To begin the process, first of all, it is necessary that the aforementioned two superpowers return to the Armenians their historical homeland, the Armenian highlands. It is advisable to start the process of creating Western, Eastern, and Central Armenia, with three fundamental and arbitration documents and treaties that are currently legally binding, for which the United States of America and the Russian Federation are directly responsible and can implement them. The first is the well-known Woodrow Wilson arbitration document, according to which 2/3 of the provinces of Van and Bitlis, almost the entire province of Erzurum, and most of the province of Trabzon, including the Black Seaport of Trabzon, which currently have a legitimate Armenian title, the total area of which is about 90,000 square kilometers, should be returned to Armenia. The second and third documents are the Moscow and Kars treaties. They were sealed in 1921. March 16th and October 13 between Bolshevik Russia and Kemalist Turkey. The treaties are considered illegal because both countries have not been recognized by the League of Nations. These agreements do not even have the signature of a representative of the legitimate government of the Republic of Armenia, according to the Moscow and Kars treaties. The Kars region and the province of Somalia, which had never been part of Turkey before, were almost completely transferred to Turkey. Mount Ararat and its surrounding areas also passed to Turkey. Nakhchivan was simply given to Azerbaijan. It would be advisable for the current government of the Russian Federation to invalidate both of these treaties and all the illegal treaties of Moscow and Kars, and returned to Armenia the provinces of Kars, Sarmaliu, Mount Ararat, the surrounding provinces, illegally transferred to Turkey. At the first stage, we propose to start discussing with the Republic of Armenia the project of creating Eastern, Central, and Islamic Western Armenia in the historical Armenian highlands. This requires the United States to implement Woodrow Wilson's famous arbitration document of 1920, which currently has international legal force, in order to restore 90,000 square kilometers of Armenian historical territories. After that, by the decision of the League of Nations Commission of 1920, the territory of the Republic of Armenia, with a length of 70,000 square kilometers, which includes Artsakh and Nakhichevan, must be annexed to it. The total area is about 160,000 square kilometers. Is necessary 1. From the area of about 160,000 square kilometers formed as a result of the launch of the two documents, it is necessary to allocate an area of about 55,000 square kilometers and create a new Islamic Republic of Armenia and make it the 51st U.S. state. Since a similar program was discussed at the beginning of the last century, from the area of about 160,000 square kilometers formed as a result of the launch of the two documents, it is necessary to allocate an area of about 50,000 square kilometers and create the Central Republic of Armenia, which will be independent and exclusively neutral. 3. From the area of about 160,000 square kilometers formed as a result of the launch of the two documents, it is necessary to allocate an area of about 55,000 square kilometers and create the Republic of Eastern Armenia on the historical Armenian lands, from Sunik to the Kur riverbed, which together with the Russian Federation can form a confederate republic. As the indigenous and oldest people of the region, we propose to dissolve the artificially created state of Azerbaijan, which was illegally created by British Bolshevik Kemalist forces. In the territories from the Kur River to the Caspian Sea and Dagestan, to restore the statehood of the Lezgins of Ars Talish, Udins and other indigenous peoples living in these territories for thousands of years, and to create independent republics of Lezgistan, Averstan, Talistan, to restore the Baku Confederate Republic as well. With the draft scenario, we also propose under the direct leadership of the Russian Federation and the United States of America, and with the mediation of Central, Western, and Eastern Armenia to bring together all the conflict regions at a round table and try to solve geopolitical, regional, financial, economic, scientific, ethnographic, cultural, educational, and vital problems and conflicts. Military expert, Colonel Valery Vardanyan.